right. Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother, man. And it's in this last week is going to be just insane. I want everyone to know that Donald Trump groped me too, but I'm not going to make a federal case out of it.
Was it at McDonald's?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't go to McDonald's very often, but the one time I went, he was there.
Yeah, he was there, and
He
that's
was
have the
there.
time. Oh man.
And it was uncomfortable, but I've come to peace with it, and I'm not gonna I'm not gonna sue him for it. I mean, maybe I will.
Nonetheless, I'm excited for your book deal.
All right, hey. I didn't even think about that. That's great.
Yeah. No, that's terrible. But so yeah, maybe I think like the third segment we should talk about the Trump McDonald's.
Oh my God, the Trump McDonald's thing
is the dumbest thing on Twitter the last few days. But that's third segment material for sure.
I don't know how we get to the bottom of these situations without the current media state, though. Like, I just want to put that out there so that people know what we're talking about.
There's a few more weeks of this nonsense, but we're gonna talk about our good friend Dick Cheney, who has given us the confidence to vote for President Harris, future President Harris.
Yeah.
So because we all, you know how libertarians love and respect Dick Cheney.
We do. He is
so much.
Well, I mean, he deserves our respect, and he's a good guy, and he's a real. What's important is that he's a real Republican, right? Like the world needs more real Republicans who can see the power and the purpose of a huge, powerful, centralized government that can change direction on whims. Like he's great like that, man.
Really selling it. All right. So we're gonna get into the show in just a minute. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a couple other current events, and then maybe the silly stuff at the end. And excuse me.
I kind of warned my friends on Twitter. I'm gonna be like, at some point, I'm jumping into identity politics, and I have a big, huge conversation from a left-wing, practical communist, which I want to share, like I did about that whole GDP thing, where it's like this is why I don't hate real leftists. This is why real leftists make a lot of sense to a kid that grew up poor, that when they see the big picture, we can be on the same side. We can collaborate.
I'm excited to either love this or hate this.
You will hate it.
I don't know. I'll hate it.
Yeah,
I'll see what direction it goes.
Looking
forward to the conversation. All right. Well, anyway, let's get started. Let's jump into the actual show for our WYSL audience. And as always, leave your comments. You got something cool to talk about? Maybe we'll talk about on the show too. Leave your comments, and we're going in now.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Oh, brother, I am here, and I am ready for this show. This is going to be the show of shows. We're getting down to that last week of insane campaigning going on. This excitement that just is palpable, like it's just there.
Palpable. Is that excitement? That is definitely what I'm feeling about this election, and not dread at all, and just wanting it to be over. Excitement. That's what we're all feeling.
Look, that's fair, brother. I get it. It's too intense. I just want everyone to know that Donald Trump groped me. I think it needs to get out there.
Talk about it at the McDonald's. We're gonna But breaking news here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Tim, before we jump into not the breaking Tim being groped by Donald Trump story, but the are talking about our good friend and dear leader Dick Cheney. Talk about the interview you did over the weekend. Tim was doing a journalism. He was being a real life journalist.
Real journalism. Okay, so my friend Brian LaRusso, a friend of the show, a guest on the show several times in the past, decided to take matters into his own hands. He was a big supporter of a couple of statewide races. He was a good friend to the New York State Libertarian Party. He was a good friend to Larry Sharp. But one day he just woke up and said, none of this is working. Like he said, I myself am going to run for a town board, and has ferreted out all sorts of wild corruption, which resulted in a bunch of people hurling accusations at him over a Facebook post, like trying to get him to resign. This made the papers. This made WKTV Utica News. I had an hour and 48-minute conversation with Brian. It's going to be up on Spotify, but you guys can check it out on go back in my history on Twitter and go back in my history on Facebook, and it's right there. We had a great conversation. Brian is a passionate dude, and guys, he's just talking about simple things of ending some nepotism, getting rid of a guy who's like trying to fraudulently move forward with FEMA grants so they get the next round of funding. He's just little tiny things that are going to make life in Hartwick more efficient, more effective. And by God, there's some controversy too, which he just absolutely eats up. He just eats it up. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So it sounds like a good interview, and I'm going to be listening to it as I edit it and put it up, and I'm excited to listen to it. Like a ton of comments, 138 comments on the Facebook page. It's
just from Facebook.
It definitely had a lot of conversation around it. So looking forward to check that out. So go find that Tim O'Connor's pages. I think it's posted on our Free Solution pages as well.
Correct. Yes.
And then we're going to put the podcast out, and anywhere you find a Free Solution, and any podcasting app you're listening to, you can find a Free Solution. Just go check it out. Go find it.
The magic of the internet, Kevin. You can just find it. A free solution.
Over. Yeah, they're all over. All right. So let's jump into the topic of the day, which is our really like someone we look up to, someone we honor in the libertarian movement.
Yeah,
someone that I think like we all look to for inspiration and guidance. Dick Cheney.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that guy.
Yeah, everyone loves that guy. Let's hear Tim Walz educate us on Dick Cheney.
Yeah, the Cheney thing. Do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders. Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
That one. The shooting?
No.
Having the Cheneys on board?
No. You can't Dick Cheney or Taylor Swift. No.
We're a big tent.
What country did Taylor Swift get us to invade? No.
Yeah. No, don't you think, though, that, and I do this, I believe this, there is still a core group of folks out there, your point being, and not joke, the don't tread on me, the Reagan piece of this, the libertarian piece, but the constitutional piece.
Yes.
There are a lot of people out there. I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing.
Wild.
That's just epic. Look,
so and for folks who don't recognize the voice, that's Jon Stewart on a Daily Show. So we just took a little clip from there, and Tim Walz, talking about how they're proud of the endorsement of Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, and I'm glad Jon Stewart, to his credit, is having none of it. He's just like, no, that's ridiculous, man. You guys don't have to go there. You don't have to pretend like this is a great thing that you're going to promote. But
Jon Stewart was absolutely one of his best moments that I remember, and I used to be a big fan of him back in the day. I thought he used to be a little bit funnier, but that right there, it's just not allowing Tim Walz to yada away from Dick Cheney coming to the Democratic Party was absolutely beautiful. But then he tries to make an appeal to libertarians connected to Liz, like Dick Cheney. That was absurd, man.
No, it's funny. And like for those who haven't picked up on the sarcasm that Tim and I were putting out earlier, like I think you know, like the joke is like if you ask like 10 libertarians like what their opinions are, you'll get like 15 different opinions. Like herding cats, right? Like infamously. I think the one thing, like one of like that the handful of things that the libertarians like all universally agree on is that Dick Cheney is terrible. That he sucks. Like it's like just a totally monstrous person who not only has been like a negative force in American politics for like literal decades since like the 1960s, but like got us into a terrible war in the early 2000s, a war that we absolutely did not need to get into, that cost thousands of American lives and hundreds of thousands of lives in Iraq and the surrounding area. It's absolutely disgusting. Like the dude should be in jail. Like sincerely, it's bad.
I mean, he look. I've got him. I've made this admission before, but I was not. I received like dystopian messages from the political world in my brain that I just couldn't reconcile, right? But back then, right after 9/11, I was kind of like, all right, some of this makes sense. We've got to. Then I'm like, why are we going over there? Hold up,
Yeah.
there
Like,
was a lot of that, and then it just got to be, yes, this is what we're doing. Okay. Then there was a constant arguing over whether there were weapons of mass destruction. And then finally, Colin Powell just blew the lid off of that. And we kept going. Like we just kept going, destroying infrastructure, destroying lives, blowing up bombs, having our kids in the most intense military situations that imaginable. And then an entire level of protocol that literally drove them crazy. Okay. Like
right.
it was such a bad idea. It was such a bad plan. It hurt an entire generation of kids. It hurt me.
Yeah.
It hurt me because
Yeah,
I
hurt an
had to
entire
wake up
generation of
and be like,
Americans,
no.
and obviously an entire generation of Iraqis, destabilized the Middle East and created some of the serious issues that we have there today. It was not a war we needed to be in. It was a terrible thing, and not to mention things like his support and justification for things like the torture program, the enhanced interrogation, among the many architects of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was so much horrific stuff there. Like, I can remember like a guy named Mancow. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him at all, but he was a libertarian leaning kind of right wingish talk show host who was
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, hey, he went and got himself waterboarded. It took him all 12 seconds to get up and be like, this is freaking torture. I thought I was gonna die. This was 12 seconds. You guys are doing this to people for days. This is absolutely torture. And
yeah.
just all of those things came to where we got to where I started becoming awake. Like George Bush Jr. or whatever, like was an absurd clown and a liar, right? And so all of these things helped make me the libertarian that I am today.
Yeah,
All
I
of
mean,
that.
again, and I was young at the time when that happened. I was like 13 when the Iraq War invasion happened. I was paying attention to it. I was like conservative, like at that time until like I got to like 16, 17, 18. I started listening to some Ron Paul stuff, and I was like, oh wait, this doesn't make any sense, and just start thinking about like the the horror of what our government was doing to people and all the ways we were violating the Constitution and making ourselves look like absolute hypocrites to the rest of the world in terms of like the values that we're supposed to espouse to everyone. If we're supposed to be the shining city on the hill, like we absolutely failed in those moments following September 11th and especially following the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah, and look, a part of me bought into this whole notion that we could bring democracy overseas, but when we're destroying their infrastructure and we're not setting up democratic institutions and we're furthering goals of war and we're cutting deals with religious theocracies, all of a sudden it doesn't look like any kind of exportation of the US Constitution and real democracy that
No.
I was just like, this is absurd.
No,
Absurd.
like there was a PR face to what was like failed real politics, right? Like it's just the politics of power. That's all it was. And again, I could get going into Afghanistan in a limited sense. I understand that, even though like the way it got dragged out was bad. But Iraq is just It did not make any sense. A bunch of people bought into it. I get a bunch of people bought into it. And if you're listening to the show and you're like, oh, I was kind of supportive of that. Like, I get it. But hey, listen, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to like look back at that and say, no, that wasn't a good use of American power. That didn't make us stronger. That didn't make us safer. And in fact, may have made the world a worse place. And Dick Cheney is one of the people behind it. So, Tim, I generally agree. Yeah, I agree with you when like I am incredibly grossed out when the Harris campaign is like, look, Dick Cheney supporting us. And I'm like, I'm kind of with Jon Stewart. Like, you sure you want to tell people that? Like, why don't you just be like,
they are leaning into it with everything that they have. Like, and look,
I like people love turncoats, right? Like when they're for your side, like, oh, look, even the other team supports us, right? Like they want to say that, but it's like, not everyone on the other team is worth getting that like good endorsement for. Like maybe don't with that guy.
Look, maybe don't with that guy, but the state of politics today, this is a vibes contest, as we've talked about on the show. And they're desperate to create a positive vibe. I think that like the betting markets have turned against them. I think that some of their internal polling must look bad. And so they've turned up the volume on the vibe contest. And I said it on our last show. I'm afraid it's like not afraid. I said I literally don't care, but it's some sort of like death spiral going on here where it's just like now we're really going to grasp at straws and we're going to look crazy. And arguably,
it always is.
to me that's where we're at. That's where we have arrived, Kevin.
I mean, it is, and again, it's not. I'm not that like freaked out about like the antics, right? Because I've studied presidential elections. I know what happens to these things. They throw out all sorts of ridiculous stuff. It's been happening literally since like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Like some of the wild accusations, like the stuff that they said about each other through proxies. They wouldn't do it directly because that wasn't, the gentlemanly thing to do. You'd be a demagogue if you spoke directly about your opponent. But the things they said through proxies was like very nasty and personal, far more so than today. But we got this point where Democrats are so concerned with how this will be the end of democracy if Trump wins again, that they're willing to partner it with, to get into bed with horrible people who soiled the image of America and the values that we stand for and the Constitution that we fight for constantly. And I think that is worth calling out. That's worth withholding my support for Democrats for that very reason. Both the specific policies that Harris has pushed and the people that she's chosen to ally herself with. Now, I could say the same thing about Trump. I'm not going to support him either, but like there's, when I was on the local NPR affiliate the other day, like, well, why not? Trump's a threat to democracy. Why not like support like the Democrat this time? And like, well, here's why. And I didn't specifically list the Dick Cheney reason, but I wish I had.
That would have been a good reason. It's a zinger because honestly, any honest Democrat has to say, hold up. Just hold up.
Can we look up what y'all were saying about him in 2007 and remind you of that? Because a lot of that was right.
Yeah, but then, then Mr., end some wars and straighten things out. Barack Obama just said, you know what I'll do instead? Drone strikes everywhere. Like such a pile of
which
absurd hypocrisy, Kevin. That's the only word to describe it, really, at this point.
It meant that there are fewer Americans in harm's way, but it also meant we were drone striking weddings and killing a lot of innocent people.
Yeah. So the old and the terrorist math is in play. Religious theocracy math is in play. You know what I mean? You kill somebody in your family, you just grew the hate for the United States. You grew it. And
right, yeah, that's how some of these movements grow, because like their only interaction with the United States is that they saw their father, their uncle, maybe their mom, their sister killed at a wedding by a drone strike that came out of nowhere. What does that do to someone? What does that do to someone who's 13 and like mad and furious and they don't have their loved ones with them anymore? Like, you think it's easy to recruit that person to pick up a gun and go like try to kill American soldiers? Of course it is.
Sure. And they live under a religious theocracy where the main sources of wealth are very heavily controlled by the people in power. They're poor, they're angry, and they're living in a freaking desert, bro. Like, could we not drone strike them? You know what I mean? Could we come up with a different freaking plan? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, beepers. That's the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Well, about that.
You're like, wait, don't wait.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with some of the things I see happening there as well. You know, like,
yeah, I got mixed feelings about it. I'm like, man, it may be better than drones. But yeah, there's
I am persuaded by killing terrorists. I am persuaded by killing.
Sometimes that's what you got to do. Sometimes
Yeah,
bad people need to be stopped with violence. Like
Sure.
that's I'm not like, in terms of like the kind of pacifist scale, I'm not like, there's no situation where violence isn't like necessary or appropriate to stop evil.
Correct.
But we tend to paint that like that situation as far more common than it really is. That we're jumping to that because, you know, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's how, unfortunately, a lot of our foreign policy has been for a couple decades.
Yeah, and when you have drones, everything looks like a terrorist. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it works. When you have that technology.
And there'd be a lot of like, oh yeah, no, they're definitely like all terrorists. And I think there's like some of the Chelsea Manning releases where they started figuring out that you know, they're just counting everyone who died as a terrorist, as a combatant.
Yeah.
We got some fans out there, Tim.
We do, man. I love it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And look, we're not going to be not controversial, you know? So that's cool. Sorry your feelings are hurt, buddy.
Yeah, that's all right.
So actually, I'm glad your feelings are hurt, to be honest with you.
No, it's fine. Yeah, that's what it is. You know, if we're not provoking feelings on folks, it's fine. But anyway, so we have like about a minute left, and we'll end up going into a couple other policies because I want to talk about the Harris campaign coming out and saying they want to legalize marijuana. I'm like, hooray! Like I'm glad you've come around to that.
Amazing that
yes,
states are way ahead of you, and it's going to have a racial component. Like, what kind of absurdity? Like, it's soft core bigotry. I don't know. We'll talk about it more for everybody when the show.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it during the actual show. And so any other topics though, let us know. I know we saw some questions about Saudi Arabia. Maybe we'll get to that during the break.
Absolutely.
No, so we're gonna head the break for our WYSL audience. Thanks again for listening here on A Free Solution. Appreciate y'all being here. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Yeah, got some music to cover my coughs. We're good.
That was great, man. That was perfect. Look, are these dudes retarded? About what specifically, bro? Like, I mean, it's fine to come in and hurl invectives because it's kind of hilarious, and you actually got more attention than they normally get. But about what, man? Like, about what? What are we morons about? That would be kind of an interesting. You probably can't type that in a complete sentence, I would imagine, but go ahead and try.
That's bad, bro.
Yeah, morons. Yeah, absolutely, we're morons. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Arguably not, but I had a pretty good run at trolling people today on Twitter, so it wouldn't surprise me if
this is coming back at you.
Yeah, people might be tracking me down because I do get to use that word retarded all too often on Twitter because honestly, it just fits. Some people's takes are amazing.
That's what you're gonna do. All right, you do you, man.
I know it seems impolite sometimes, even to me, but then again, there I am.
I've kind of moved on from that. But
immature arguing. Kevin, I'm only 58. Someday I will grow up and move past.
Well, one day, Tim. I don't know how you have time for that. Like, I'm just because I'll say you just like comment like randomly under people and just like start stuff. I'm like, Tim, what are you doing with your time, man?
See, that's a good question.
Just lighting little fires everywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm actually working on my house, so that allows me a little bit of more freedom than I would normally have during my regular work schedule. Because honestly, let's be honest, and people are at a fever pitch of excitement right now. So there is a lot of energy being invested in arguing over political minutia, if you will. But if you see a bad take, man, you got to confront that. I'm obligated
You're
in my
obligated. You got
soul.
it. Someone's wrong on the internet. I'm gonna tell them.
I'm gonna fix them. I can fix them. And if I can't fix them, I can get hundreds of likes mocking them.
And isn't that just as good? Yes.
Sometimes better.
All right. So John Thuman's asking, why didn't we invade Saudi Arabia? Wrong answers only. Well, like that's a fair question after September 11th. There sure were a lot of connections between Saudi Arabia and Al Qaeda and specifically Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, well, one of the wrong answers is because we wouldn't invade them because of their dedication to human rights and the advancement of women in their culture. That's one of the reasons why we wouldn't invade them.
They're the ones holding together peace in the Middle East. Like there's
that. They are benevolent.
Yes.
And
benevolent theocracies.
Yeah, and they're working really hard to move away from their entitled religious theocracy. They're working hard to move away from that. I mean, wrong answers only.
Wrong answers. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it. Those are those are the answers.
No, it's just they just got lost. It's like we don't got time for that.
Yeah.
But and anyway, we should get back to the actual show. Let's jump into the marijuana thing.
All right.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kim Willis today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. And once again, I want to say thank you to the WYSL audience. I want to say thank you to the folks on Twitter. I want to say thank you to the folks on Facebook. And thank you to the people that are going to find this podcast later on Spotify. It is through the grace of God that Kevin and I are able to do this. We enjoy doing this show, and we appreciate every single one of you. Now, don't forget to like, comment, share, even if you feel like you got something nasty to say, because we're here for it. We can handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave the comment. We can take it.
We can.
So let's talk about the Harris campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Put out a new policy. Says a tweet from the other day said no one should go to jail for smoking weed. Legalize recreational marijuana, breaking down unjust barriers that hold Black men and other Americans back, and making sure Black Americans have opportunities to succeed as a marketplace takes shape. Tim, are we excited about this change of policy, this change of heart?
Oh,
and is it going to work out?
No. Look, this is, and maybe later in the show we're going to get a chance for me to rant about identity politics, but this is identity politics at its heart. Like, why is she asking me to assume that like all Black men smoke weed and that they're being punished for smoking weed all of the time? Like, I don't get that kind of communication. I don't know how that builds support from people. Like, are all Black dudes smoking weed, Kevin? Is there something that I don't know?
I don't think so. I wouldn't assume so. In fact, the rates of usage are pretty similar among Black Americans and white Americans, and they have been for a while. There was a problem with more Black men being arrested for low-level drug crimes. That was a legitimate problem. We've talked about it. And one solution to that is to legalize recreational marijuana, which is a step in the right direction. So I'll give her that. It's a step in the right direction. Now,
sure,
it's not exactly leadership on the issue
now
anymore. No. It's what I forget what the poll is like. Like 60 some odd % of the country says this should be legal now. I guess I should follow along with that.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump is already in favor of legalized marijuana, so he's out ahead of her again. Well. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a plant, regulated like onions, and just relax. I don't even like marijuana. I don't even like it. But it the argument is that it should have never been illegal in the first place. It has always been a manipulation by use of fear, use of like bigotry, and it was all to be like so the pulp wood industry and Patty Hearst's dad could win in hemp makes good paper, Kevin. It makes the very best paper. Some people say it's incredibly fine paper. Like it does all of those things. And so to get it out of mainstream use and consumption, it was viciously attacked, it was denigrated, and it was like, do you remember like all of the Timmy killed his grandma on Thanksgiving because he smoked one marijuana stuff? Like it was just
reefer
absurd.
madness. Yeah, man. No, that was a lot of that, and some of it is also a little bit of xenophobia, like, oh, look, this is this Mexican drug, this foreign drug that's coming in and messing up American teens, like it's just one that like there's a whole bunch of bad stuff mixed up in it. It's like industry corruption, it's xenophobia, it's just creating reasons, and Nixon like explicitly talked about like the war on drugs was a way to crack down on his political enemies. Like that's what it was, right? Like again, even if some of those people like were terrible in some ways, that like the communists and stuff, like I don't agree with them, but also you shouldn't be going to jail for your beliefs or for smoking a plant. Like it's not a good way to like deal with that at all, to the extent that it is a problem. And I won't deny that there's problematic drug use, but like it's not a great solution to throw people in jail over that. And Kamala Harris was a big fan of that. Big fan of throwing people in jail for a long time, as both a district attorney in the San Francisco area, and then eventually the state attorney general in California. And John Thuman on YouTube says, oh my God, she kept nonviolent black men as slaves when she was AG and was court ordered to release them. So for those of you who don't know what John's talking about here,
this is a true story. Like
this is true. And again, I've seen some left wing places try to spin this as like not true or right wing conspiracy theory. No, this one's actually legit. What she did was, during one of the California wildfire seasons, the prison system in California was using labor from the prison system, the Department of Corrections out there, to be firefighters, right?
Yep.
And some of these prisoners were eligible for release. She fought to keep them in prison, to force them to work as firefighters for longer in order to keep fighting the fires.
There's nothing wrong with that, Kevin.
Except for the 13th Amendment violation.
Sure. You and your amendments.
I know.
It's true. You and your Constitution.
It's just a Constitution. Libertarians always on about that. And the 13th Amendment, I'll say, it's one of the good ones. One of the good ones that was a good amendment to the Constitution, is making slavery legal. And it's not often that you get presidential candidates who violate the 13th Amendment. But Harris kind of seems to be one of them. It's a pretty awful situation, and you could justify it with all sorts of like legal nonsense, but like at the end of the day, she fought to keep people in cages or in under state custody in order to force them to work. Like that's what it comes down to. That ain't right. That's an awful thing to do to people, and that in and of itself should be disqualifying. And it's a shame that more Democrats don't bring that part up.
Honestly, like if there was a way to disqualify both of these guys, I think it would be a lot more interesting of a race. Like, arguably, I think if we paid attention to the Constitution and like these things, if we paid attention to these things that they do, if they weren't so effective at memory holding everything and just setting it aside for the greater good, we would be in so much better shape as a society. It's not even fun.
You just gotta listen. Democracy's at stake. So like just about some of the slavery stuff.
Right.
But I know
fighting fires, Kevin.
Fighting fires is a good cause.
Them. Oh my God.
No, it kills me. It's just the self-righteousness of some of that stuff. And The Trump people do it too. Like they will
absolutely,
excuse all sorts of nonsense, like his bad tariff policies and
groping Tim.
And groping Tim.
It was awkward. It was.
No.
I mean, I didn't deserve
Groping
it.
Tim is but his nonsense about like how he wants to take away the broadcasting license of CBS. That's bad. We should say that's bad. That's not a cool thing to do. That'd be a First Amendment violation. That's also one of the important amendments is the First Amendment. We shouldn't be taking away the broadcasting licenses of news outlets that we disagree with.
What if we took away the licensing structure and did away with that? Like,
Tim, what a great compromise. You're a genius. This is why you're getting that cabinet appointment, Tim.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's why me. It's down to me or Vivek, I think. I'm not sure.
One or the other. It's going to be a tough call.
And look, really Kevin,
game time decision.
I am not going to start a war with Mexico, and I don't think that based on some of the comments that Vivek has made, we can count on him for that. So it was one of
to start a war with Mexico. I haven't seen where he's at on that lately.
He was ranting about sending the military to the border and have them armed and ready to go, and it was months ago, and it was just like the most uncomfortable thing that I heard from him, and I was just like, all right, I'm not even going to talk about that because that's absurd. No,
because like there's sometimes where I like him, like where he talks about this his concept of civic nationalism and how he sees himself as American. Like he did a great interview with Just Asking Questions on Reason where he talks about some of this stuff, and it's fantastic where he talks about like the values of promoting liberty, the values of like positive civic engagement, the values of solving problems together like through our Republican form of government, and it's great. Like it's good stuff. It's like he was channeling like some of the stuff that Reagan talks about in his better moments. Again, forgetting the fact that Reagan did a bunch of terrible stuff too, like the better, more aspirational stuff that he talked about. And then Vivek going on about invading Mexico. Like,
look, I'm not.
No, that's terrible. Like that's also disqualifying from because Trump's talked about it too.
Yeah,
we shouldn't do that. That's bad.
That was Mexico. War with cartels and stuff like that. He was on about that for a short period of time. He has not emphasized it. Doesn't come back around regularly with him. I think he figured out that may not be a great message. And look, Vivek is one of the most compelling speakers that burst into the scene this year. Like he's interesting, he's smart, he's sharp, he's witty, he does crowd work better than any other politician I've ever seen. And so I'm looking forward to a future that includes him doing things in the political arena.
I've seen a few things of him doing crowd work where he engages people earnestly and tries to get them to like just kind of get down to the root of the issue. He doesn't mock them. He just like, okay, like let's get down to like what the actual thing is and try to talk about this as civil people. And I like him when he does that type of stuff.
Me too, brother. I that's what I'm saying. There was something very compelling about him. There's something still very enjoyable about him, listening to him talk. And he does a great job of presenting ideas and goals. Like he's aspirational speaking, communicatory speaking, not talking down to people in one-on-one situations unless they're a reporter, and then he just wrecks them. And how
he's got to put on a bit of a show, right? Like
absolutely.
That's the brand. That's the
Yeah. Well, first of all, they have it coming because like we could pretend to hate them, but they hate us more. Like they hate us way more than we hate them. Like we still give them the benefit of the doubt, Kevin. Like literally people are still thinking Rachel Maddow may not be a simplified version of a propagandist. She may actually have some value. Like people actually still believe that. And I just like, I don't know how they do it.
Some folks find her entertaining, I guess. What she does, actually, like I've been thinking about stuff like her specifically lately, just in terms of like tribalism, where it's all tribal red meat, right? Like actually, I'll give a book recommendation. Andrew Heaton just wrote a book about tribalism that's really good.
Okay.
And if you want to know how I approach politics, I'm really bad at being tribal. I'm really bad at like being on a team and like being like, no matter what, I'm gonna cheer for red team or cheer for blue team or even cheer for gold team. Like, nope, I'm bad at that. But Rachel Maddow is that. Like, it doesn't matter how dumb, it doesn't matter how disconnected from reality, it doesn't matter how like hypocritical the stuff she puts out is. Like, she'll do it if it helps Team Blue. And there's plenty of equivalents on the right side too. I think we're beating up on blue team a lot today, but like,
Yeah,
I'll say there's plenty of equivalents on the right, but that's what she does. It's just all about red meat for your team, rah rah rah, your team. No matter how dumb, no matter how disconnected, and like that stuff drives me crazy. Like I can't stand it. When I see people get sucked into that stuff, I'm like, do you listen to yourselves? Do you listen? Like it's like some of her stuff on Russia, like man, I'm critical of the Russian government plenty, but like,
sure,
bro, what are you talking about?
look,
Get a grip.
yeah, it is like, well, first of all, the messaging consistency from the mainstream media is a sight to behold. It suggests to me that there's a bigger thing going on, that they literally get centralized talking points. I know that I've seen where people have demonstrated who is presenting those talking points, but it is impressive. You'll never get that from libertarians. Never. You'll never ever get that kind of message consistency.
No, we don't. We don't have that level of discipline, to be sure.
Mhm.
But except for disliking the Cheneys. Now
That's
we're pretty
correct.
solid on that. We dislike the Cheneys. I think there might be. So Tim, I don't know if you saw what I named this episode, which is why we're probably getting some comments that are mad.
Okay.
The name of the title of the episode is Dick Cheney supports Harris, making it safe for libertarians to do the same.
Oh man, that is a great name for this show. Yeah, no,
just because Sean on YouTube, just to be clear, we don't like the Cheneys.
No.
We don't like, especially Dick Cheney, but also Liz Cheney. Nope, not fans at all. We are mocking Tim Walz.
Yeah, he definitely did not give me permission to, like, I didn't feel permission to all of a sudden decide that I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that.
On that note, yeah.
Sorry about all that, but
no.
yeah, no.
I think it's time for a break, though. It is time for a break. So we're going to head out. Thanks for listening here on WYSL and the live stream as well. We're going to be back here on Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
We got one, Kevin. We got one. Spooky ammo out there. As soon as the media tells you to hate him, you will. I think that was when I was going off about Vivek, is when that comment came in. I sensed a little.
Yeah, well, he followed up with
Yeah.
this one. Says,
Yeah.
I thought you were weird Cheney libertarians I've never heard of. Like,
yeah, no.
I don't think there are Cheney libertarians. I'm like maybe there is. Like, I've seen who's that guy on Twitter who's Eagle? Is that the guy's name I'm thinking of?
Eagle. Oh
yeah,
my
I think he said some nice things, which is it's a little bit weird to me. Like, because he was kind of libertarian adjacent, and he's kind of in the liberal party movement now. I don't get listen, like I have a lot of like love for the people who are like kind of liberals who like they don't really vibe with the Libertarian Party, but they want to like fight for freedom, and like 70% agree with me. Y'all don't need to have Cheney on your team. Like, you really don't.
Wow.
Like, we again, you can just ignore that guy. You can just be like, okay, thanks. You could treat him like a David Duke endorsement. Like, oh, okay, thanks for that, but we don't really need it.
I don't think with David Duke, no one said thank you when David Duke endorsed them, though. Just for clarity's sake.
No, they didn't. That's what I'm saying. You should treat it like that.
Yeah. So, it's a weird timeline that we're going through right now. There's a lot of emotionality. There's a strange affiliation with the love of government versus the anti-establishment folks. The problem with them is the solutions that we talk about is like, well, what we're going to do is take, when Trump comes in, we're going to take and replace every agency with a new department head, and that agency is still going to exist. And we're going to build the FBI a big new building. And look, I'm sympathetic to conservatives, real conservatives. Next segment, Kevin, I am going to insist on talking about this leftist that I found that exposes identity politics for what it really is. It just, and in a way that caused me to respect a leftist, right? Like, you know me, I'm pretty much out there making fun of the establishment leftists, people like Eagle. I had to mute that guy because he was literally causing me heartburn when I read his post. I'm like, all right, that's it. I've had enough of this guy. Like I will never, ever share that guy's tweet. I will never like it.
There's some, like some of the stuff I like, but like, man, I see like the aggressive foreign policy stuff, and I'm like, what? Nope. I'm not on board with that.
Oh
nope.
my God.
I can't do that.
Yeah, one of those jokers was like, well, the draft was a good thing because we killed Hitler. And I'm like, you know what? How about you shut your pie hole, dude? Like, just
nope.
Also go away. You know what I mean? Like,
draft is still bad. Like you know, I can think that World War II was like justified in a lot of ways, and also think like the draft is still literally slavery. Like it, and I know that upsets people. You know, in
not
like
me.
the mainstream too. I know, not you, not libertarians, but like I'll say that to like this is how like sometimes I think like, you know, maybe I could just like rejoin one of the major parties, and, like, hey, do stuff, and then like I'll say stuff like that, and they're like, what do you mean? You can't compare it to that. I'm like, I absolutely can, because it is.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really a libertarian. Gosh darn it.
I know that's hard for you. I know, because, and for me sometimes, because I do the same thing. I'm just like, okay. I can affiliate and I can speak conservatives' language. I can get in there where they need encouragement to hate the government more than they do, but they're pretty close to hating the government. You know what I mean? Like, there's sometimes. All right.
Yeah.
But they just want better. They just want better leadership in the government. It's like,
it comes out to the same thing. You know, if we had our people in there, like we'd be able to do it right. I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Like, you're right in criticizing how bad this was. Just stop giving those people the power to do that. Stop.
Yeah,
you know, we just don't need to do it.
And look, again, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, real conservatives and real liberals, in their heart, I get them. Because in their heart, they're like, hey, the government's screwing us. You know what I mean? Like, in their heart, that's what they're saying. And if we can just bring that one step further, we could just, through a show of force.
Through a show of force.
Through a show of force.
All right, now you're losing me, Tim.
I know. That's a problem. It's like, it's never going to work, is it? Never.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, let's go back. We'll do what you have for identity politics, and
I'll try to do it pretty fast, because some of it's going to hurt a little bit. You know what I mean? Where I'm getting down with a lefty, but I'll do it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it for the show.
Doing it for sure. Wow, like way to make the sacrifice, Tim. Really appreciate, and I hope you listening out there appreciate the sacrifice Tim's making, conversing with other people. Wow,
it's crazy.
Wow. All right, let's go back in now. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, man, and once again, thank you to the people making comments tonight. Thank you to the WYSL audience. Remember to like, comment, share, track down our podcast on Spotify. We do it for you. We do it for each other. We do it for therapy. But like, this is very enjoyable. And so recently, I look for things that help me predict the future, that explain what I see to be irrational behavior by the powers that be, by the government. And one of the things that I focused on and many times have harshly and justifiably criticized is this cult of identity politics, that it's a disaster, that it's dangerous, that it's divisive, and that it accumulates power to a centralized government, because we're driven apart, and by skin color, not by anything real, by manipulated tribalism. We're driven apart by these things. And so we look at identity politics, and I see where we're pretending to honor people's differences, and we're trying to like make sure everybody's treating everybody well, but the end result is something so far from what its purported goal is that I have to say that the goal is not what the stated goal is. We're not actually trying to prop people up. we're trying to keep them divided. And so I found a left-wing psychopath that agrees with me. I just love that stuff. I love it.
Starting out strong. Okay, so tell me about this.
All right.
What was your conversation? Tell us about it.
All right. So basically, I listened to Jimmy Dore, and he's absolutely hilarious, right? So he had this guy on, and Jimmy Dore is a real leftist. Okay, he gets into a lot of things about, UBI and the government should do this and the government should do that. And he had a guest on, this guy named Christian Parenti, who is like, he wants to make it clear that there's an anti-intellectual authoritarian nature to woke ideology, that it is not what they are saying it is, that it is, again, what the libertarian in me says, that it's a way for of course he goes to like rich people to stay in power, but it's a way for rich people to stay in power, and rich people run the government. I think on some level we kind of, as libertarians, even have to like accept that the purchasing of regulations, the interchange of CEOs from serving on boards in the government to going back to serving on boards in big pharma or big ag, like, it seems to be an absurdity that doesn't make any sense to us. So one of the many points that he makes is that if we can factionalize people and get them to distrust each other, we can never organize according to class and fight the power of the government. And so from that perspective of attacking the government, I absolutely love the concept. What do you think about that? You got
right. So keeping people divided, in this case along class lines, is a way to prevent them from fighting like their actual enemies.
Okay, let me put a little spot of clarity on it.
Yeah.
What he's saying is that the classes should unite, because really there's only two classes. There's the rich and the government and the rest of us. And
did he refer to it as the proletariat? Or
I know, no, he does definitely sound like a Marxist, right? Like, and I get that. But the point that he makes about the authoritarian nature of identity politics and how it will never allow people to organize in such a way as to create an effective government for them was kind of impressive. Now, his goals for the government are something that I eschew, and I think that all of the things that he wants could be better solved in a free market system, and they would be solved by a freer market system. But the points about dividing people to keep them powerless is impressive.
Can I give you like a historical example of this?
Sure, please.
So part of why the government in the South prior to the Civil War was able to maintain power the way it was in part by dividing people along racial lines, right? Because a lot of the poor white farmers who didn't benefit from like the government pouring a massive amount of resources into maintaining slavery, which was expensive to do. Like on net, it was probably like just kind of a loss, despite what a lot of people think, because like you had to pay for all these systems of policing and enforcing and capture and tracking, and the average white farmer didn't really benefit from that because most people did not own slaves. And the fact is that like it would have been the way that they could have united is like understanding like how they had a lot in common with slaves, but they were divided by saying, at least you're better than them. They divide people along racial lines, said you're better than them, and that's why like you should support this system and support like the plantation class. So and I know like we're getting a bit distracted by comments because it's funny. We got a few more. It's like I think I titled this well.
You did. We should title every show like this.
Slight distraction. That Gunsy on YouTube says, "Do you guys support Harris?" No,
absolutely not.
Another one, the Adam G and Everything show. And neocon supporting Kamala has nothing to do with libertarianism. Bro, we know.
agree. We agree, bro. Like, you guys should have been here for the first part. We played the whole
Got
part.
him.
Yeah, we got him, baby. We got him. And that's a beautiful thing, right?
Great. Like, folks, welcome to the show. Like, I hope you're enjoying like what we're talking about, and I encourage you to go back and listen to the first segment. We're gonna put it out on Spotify, where we spend after engaging in some heavy sarcasm, we roast Dick Cheney and the entire warmongering apparatus that was responsible for everything that happened in the early 2000s. So no, we're not fans of Dick Cheney, Ray and the Cheneys.
He was very successful in creating the absurd disconnect in my mind that allowed me to see libertarianism as, even if it's not successful, I can sleep at night and live with my decisions about my political philosophy. Okay, so
right.
that's,
I mean, like, thank you, Dick Cheney, for inspiring me to become a libertarian by seeing like what horrible stuff people can do when given too much power. Like, in a way, he is an inspiration.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So, and look, and then they walked in on me talking about a leftist like attack on identity politics instead of a libertarian perspective on identity politics. So this must be pretty awkward for some of our new fans, but
it's fine.
Yeah. So
so anyway, we'll keep talking about identity politics because like I want to give that historical example to just say like it's not totally unfounded to say that race can be used as a way to keep people from understanding like the ways in which the government like makes their lives worse, right? By saying like, well, yeah, sure, like we're doing the sketchy stuff over here, but like at least you're like the system we have now means you're better than that person. Or like, keeping people divided along racial lines, just say like, we're I'm trying to think like, like that your interests are in competition with someone else's, or that's a zero-sum game. And this can happen in terms of people who are like pushing like white supremacy or like black supremacy politics too, where it becomes a zero-sum game instead of thinking about all the ways that we can like work together to like just live and start businesses and do stuff.
And trade with each other and make things for each other and serve each other.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
make food that we like and sell it to each other and grow cows for each other. Like that's what free market stuff should look like.
And get the South prevented free markets from emerging in like the early 18th century. Like there was a lot of restrictions on markets in America, and like luckily we got to a point where markets were able to thrive, imperfectly in a lot of cases, but markets were able to thrive a little bit more, and we're able to get some success for that.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean the government isn't still doing a whole bunch of shady stuff to make our lives worse and prevent that exchange from happening.
Correct.
But we just have to keep looking at those instances where it does happen, and I think like where we have to go is like the solution isn't therefore we should not unite and take over the government and have it do the bidding on behalf of our philosophy. It's maybe the government doesn't need that power in the first place, and we just live our lives. And
certainly that's the conclusion I came to, that if I could convince this guy that gutting the federal government of all of its power, that we could craft free market solutions to these things is better than a class alignment where we decide to take down the rich. Okay, that if for example we didn't subsidize corn and make corn sweetener cheaper, like then we would have a free market solution to the obesity problem, right? And we wouldn't have to tax sugary sodas because we wouldn't be subsidizing corn sugar in the first place. So it gets into this circular thing. Also, I want to credit Chase Oliver for that. You know how hard this is for me, but I was watching the debate. That there is actually a libertarian debate, third party debate tonight, with Jill Stein, the Constitutional Party guy who, boy, he's funny, and then Chase Oliver, who is actually putting on a pretty good show for libertarianism.
I'll say like he's good at what he does. Like honestly, I think he's a legitimately good spokesperson. I've been hearing him on like a handful of different podcasts and media outlets lately, and I'm like, you know what? Like, he's good at explaining this in ways that people understand, and he's still extremely principled while phrasing it in ways that like normies can get a little bit better.
Correct.
You know, sometimes like we'll go into like rants where like, man, if like your average moderate voter who shows up every 4 years listens to the show, they'll be like, what the heck are these guys talking about? But you know, and I know we try to phrase things in ways people understand, but I think he's good at that.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest that perhaps I've been unfair to him occasionally, but I don't care. I don't even feel bad about it. To conclude our identity politics thing, yeah. To conclude our identity politics discussion, I think it's important to recognize that the political class serves the oligarchs, and the oligarchs love a factionalized populace because that allows them to run roughshod all over us. Like, you just think about how Obamacare was sold as health care for people, and what it really was like, hey, you have to buy health insurance from the megapoly insurance parties. Like, it wasn't
really the same thing.
No, not even a little bit. It's not even close, right? Like, that's the thing. We were sold something so different from what the promise was that it is amazing that more people do not grab onto the fact that the government is a scam artist, is a con artist that is making people rich off of like, I'm going to be a leftist. If I go communist, Kevin. If I leave the Libertarian Party, I go communist. That's it.
God.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Listen, I've seen people do it though. I've seen populists who are like, they start out like they're just mad at the government, and then they're like, you know what we really need to be mad at? The corporations. And I'm like, all right, tell me about it. No, you lose me. And they're like, yeah, no, like we just gotta be mad at the rich and the billionaires, and like we just gotta take more from them because I'm like, where are you going, pal?
Right. Well, look, the issue of confiscating property, especially property that's held as monetary accumulation, will literally, it's the worst form of modern monetary theory. It will destroy the value of the currency. We will all lose our faith in it. And it's an absurd idea. It will never, ever work.
No, it's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
It's been tried plenty of times before too. Like, we have evidence that it's a bad idea.
We do. It's historical evidence, if you will.
No, and we got other folks out there. I'd go monarchist. All right, bro.
I'm with them. I'm with Men with Sticks on that. A disinterested tyrant who just wants to play golf, who we can literally tar and feather or hang from a gallows if he misbehaves. Like, arguably, I love the fact that the argument that monarchists are more accountable than the current system of government that we have.
Anyway, we have to end the show. What an interesting way to end the show. I would just go just like full like grill centerist. Like, I just want a grill, man. Like, that's gonna be my exit.
All right, fair enough.
But on that note, we do have to end the show. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. Good night, WYSL audience. Take care. Can find the outro music.
That's all right.
It's all right. It's gonna be in there for the final edit, folks.
Yeah, I tried to and again we forgot during the show to shout out to our buddy Matthew, who helped make accessing that Kamala Harris or the Tim Walz clip with Jon Stewart accessible to our show, because
thank you.
Yeah, that he put in some effort there for us, which was great. And then of course I had to try on my own to get a clip of Kamala Harris lecturing about how Donald Trump is a fascist, which I thought was, man, it would have been.
Is that the other clip you put in there?
Did I?
No,
that was Joe Biden threatening to lock Donald Trump up. He's like, what we have to do is lock this guy up. I mean, lock him down from serving as, president again. It was hilarious. He caught himself. Like, he still had a level of class that we're not seeing from the other politicians there, despite his cognitive abilities.
Yeah. Dude, we never talked about the McDonald's thing. There we go.
Oh my God, that's good stuff.
It's hilarious because again, this is the type of thing. It happens every election where there's some like goofy little stunt that like presidential candidates do, and it's a nothing burger, right? Like it's fine.
Right.
Like I don't think like Donald Trump is a man of the people because he worked a shift at McDonald's. Nor do I think he's fake for doing it. Like it's fine. Like it does not matter to me. And if it happened and no one commented on it, but people lost their mind. Like, people are going bananas over this. It's ridiculous.
The social justice warriors, first of all, like I worked in McDonald's. For Donald Trump to, I honestly, I can't even, like, it couldn't reach my brain for me to repeat it. It was so absurd. And then the plethora, the multitude of journalists explaining to everyone on Twitter that this was a photo op. Don't you guys understand what a photo op is? And I was like, well, yeah, that's what it was. He eats McDonald's. It was, oh yeah, you know what?
I didn't know what I was doing there.
I missed that one.
Matthew says McDonald's son equals nothing burger.
It was a nothing burger. Other than he did promise to bring, through force of law, beef tallow fries back to the people.
Yeah, no, it's these things don't matter, right? Like it was just a stupid thing. Even though like there are a bunch of people who are like on the right, like, oh, look at Donald Trump, like real man of the people, real working class guy. Like he understands what it means to work at McDonald's. Like, bro, no, he doesn't.
No,
he does not understand what it means to work at McDonald's. Not at all. Like it's fine. Like I don't care. I'm not mad at him for it. But also, like I've worked at McDonald's before, right? Like I've actually I was there when I was like, gosh, like 16.
Yeah.
And I was mad because they wouldn't give me enough hours. But like, I've been there on a Saturday morning when it's busy and you're trying to work the fries and you're trying to like drop some fish and you're trying to like,
do the job.
Like, yeah, like it's busy. It's hard work. It's sweaty. It's dirty. Like it stinks. Like guess he wasn't doing that. Like it's not the same. It's
no,
let's not pretend he understands that. And again, I'm not like, I don't really care that much. I don't think he needs to understand it. Like it's fine.
It's literally, like you already said, a nothing burger. They were pointing out, oh, look, we have video of him rehearsing the drive-through people. And it was like, right. I mean, people have tried to shoot him, right? Like they're going to know who's driving through the drive.
Yeah, no, I did see some of that. Like, no, it's all staged because like the Secret Service is there. It's like, yeah, of course it was. Like, what do you think was going to happen? Like are you like that naive or just like trying to score points on Twitter? Like could be both. I don't know.
This right here has to come up. Coincidence? I mean, big listeria outbreak, E. coli outbreak going on right now.
Yeah, let's look for the origins of that.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be an investigation. Congress, get on it. You got nothing better to do, right?
It's domestic terrorism to try to make Trump look bad.
We'll see what way it's gonna go, right?
Yeah,
either that or a Russian plan to poison Americans prior to the election, one or the other.
Yeah,
it's I don't know, but we won't know until Congress investigates. Like,
listen, then we won't ever know. Like that.
I mean, it's gonna take a couple years, Tim, but they'll get to the bottom of this, I'm sure. And like, it's not like they were going to get like an actual like budget together. Right? They're just gonna do another continuing resolution anyway. I know it. You know it. You might as well fill their time with like something other than fundraising. Like they gotta mix it up sometimes.
They could tweet more.
Fair point.
Me and Base Mike Lee had a little conversation on Twitter.
Did you? I think I did see you go back.
You saw me brag about it. Like I'm like, oh yeah, it was pretty cool. Somebody had really pwned him, and I wasn't really paying attention to what they said. And he's like, does this bother you? And I'm like, well, free speech ain't free. People are going to say stupid things. And he's like, yeah, but, and he actually gave me a response of, well, what they're accusing me of is horrendous and untrue or something along that lines. Yeah. So do I have a right to react or kind of thing? And I think he ended up blocking him or something. We'll see if he gets sued for it.
Right. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that as an elected official.
But it was based like, 2 sentences back and forth to a relatively famous politician. But I've had that happen with Massey a few times. And I don't know. I'm still going to send him $100 and send the receipt to my Mark Molinaro. Be like, there you go.
Just to rub it in Mark Molinaro's face.
Must be like, I told you to hang out with him. I told you, dude. I do think before we go,
right.
I think we got to talk about the Chinese-Cuban alliance that's going on, man. I think it's awesome. I think it's like,
well,
hang on, conservatives, relax, okay? Like, I'm just saying, the conversation that they had is pretty interesting. So, do you want to lead into it?
Or so I'll let me see if I can pull up the article again. I think it's from the Financial Times. So I got the quote in front of me right now, and it says, China publicly supports Cuba's right to choose its own path to economic development in line with its national conditions, but privately, Chinese officials have long urged the Cuban leadership to shift from its vertically planned economy to something closer to the Chinese model, according to economists and diplomats briefed on the situation. Chinese officials have been perplexed and frustrated by the Cuban leadership's unwillingness to decisively implement a market-oriented reform program despite the glaring dysfunctions of the status quo, the people said.
I love
the red Chinese are encouraging Cuba to be more free market.
I love it. That's how this all begins, man. That's how free trade becomes anti-war. China just wants to trade with Cuba and wants Cuba to stop being authoritarian communist psychopaths. Like
quit being the worst for a little bit. Like that. Yeah, that would be great, because they recognize like they can have an ally and get the benefits of free markets if they would just quit being so dogmatic about their communism and making their own people miserable and poor.
China has done a great job, like, of saying, hey, you know what? Like, you can start a business. We just want the party to own some of it. Like, and you can be really rich, but we just want to be able to control everything you say, like, or most everything you say. Like, we just want to have our little hand in everything, and you can funnel us some money, but you can have a yacht. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's how I mean, it works for the officials in the Chinese government.
It sure does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a free market system exactly, but it's more free market than what Cuba has and what a lot of other communist governments have. And even being a little more free market can lift billions of people out of poverty, as like we've seen happen to China over the last several decades. Being a little bit more free market goes a long way. Now they could go even further and be even more successful.
Sure.
Hopefully that happens one day, and they embrace freedom and liberty and even more free markets, and not like the weird cronyism that they have there. But even a little bit more freedom means a lot of wealth and a lot of comfort, and a lot of lives saved.
Bat soup for everybody, Kevin.
Bat soup for everybody.
Yep. 2 bats in every pot. Like, the FDR plan is going to work out pretty well. I'm just saying.
Was it FDR? No, it wasn't FDR who had chicken in every pot. It was oh my god, no, it was Huey Long. I'm pretty sure it's Huey Long. I'm like,
no, we had a president that said it.
Yeah, Huey Long, a chicken in every pot. That was it. That was totally him.
All right.
A chicken in every pot and every man a king.
I like that one.
So he's Louisiana guy, and yeah, he was an interesting fellow. He's a big populist in the 1930s. There's a bunch of weird directions America could have gone in the 1930s. It's a crazy time.
All right, so I just Googled it, and I'm impressed with your knowledge and memory, but it's coming up as Herbert Hoover. So we were both wrong.
Hoover.
Yeah.
No, they say that. All right, we're gonna find out. Huey Long definitely also said that.
All right.
I'm gonna have to look it up now. It's gonna bother me.
Well, now I go to some page and it's saying it originated it when Henry IV was king. I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's just one of those old phrases.
That I'm surprised.
Oh no, you're right. Like it did start with Herbert Hoover, and Huey Long picked it up.
See,
you're right. You're right.
And the Nazis were like cars for everybody, cars for the folk. I mean, I'm just saying, There's a
Volkswagen.
lot of power in political promises, Kevin. That's all I'm saying.
There, if you promise to make people comfortable and stop change and everything's going to be great. Yeah, I mean, y'all shouldn't believe it. Don't. It's always nonsense.
Anytime you centralize market distortions, market activity, it ends up a mess. Like you're waiting for gas, like for your assigned day on Tuesdays. Like it's just it's absurd.
Yeah, but isn't the price controls worth it for?
Is it? Because I don't think it is.
No, it's not. It's not worth it. Not at all. All right. I think I'm gonna call it a night. And I just want to end by saying for all of our new friends out there, Dick Cheney sucks. That guy's the worst. And thank you for finding our show because of my inflammatory title.
I think that honestly we should aim for inflammatory titles every week. Like
do that now.
It worked. It was good.
Brought a few of you out.
Yeah. What it inspired was a lot of great comments, right? Our show attendance was about normal. So, like let's not.
But a bunch of people jumped in to just like Dick Cheney is terrible. It's harass
we
us.
know. Yeah.
We know, y'all. Yeah. That's what helps with the algorithm.
That's it. We do need an algorithm scientist for our show, I think.
We do. It's true. All right. Well, on that note, folks, have a good night.